We talk a lot about the incredible work that CBOs do right. They're out there tackling some really big challenges.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think sometimes we forget
Mm.
about all the behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on that makes that work possible.
For sure, for sure.
Today, we're diving into something that might not sound super exciting, but is actually really important for CBOs,
Yeah.
HR policies.
Mm-hmm.
I know it doesn't sound super glamorous,
It's the foundation.
but it could make a huge difference in how these organizations function.
Yeah, it really can. And I think a lot of times people think about HR and they think about big corporations and paperwork and all that stuff.
And red tape?
But for CBOs, it's really about creating a supportive framework that helps them achieve their goals.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point.
Yeah, and we're lucky because we've got these great training materials from the Southern Africa Litigation Centre.
Oh, yeah, SALC.
SALC, yeah.
They call it capacity strengthening, which I think is a really great way to think about it.
I like that term a lot.
So let's jump into this.
Okay, let's do it.
One of the things that SALC really emphasizes is that HR policies aren't just about rules. You know,
No.
They have a much broader function.
Yeah.
They talk about things like fostering a healthy work environment,
Yes.
making sure you're aligned with all the legal requirements,
Of course.
and even providing a framework for things like recruitment and training.
It's so important. And you know what I think it's interesting is that
Yeah.
when you have those policies in place, it actually creates this kind of support system that people don't even always realize is there.
No, that's a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, like, for example, you have a new volunteer
Uh,
who's maybe working with beneficiaries for the first time, and they encounter a tricky situation.
right.
If there's a clear code of conduct,
Yeah,
they know exactly how to handle it.
right.
It protects the organization, the volunteer, and the beneficiaries.
It's almost like a roadmap.
It is, yeah, it is.
You know, so
Donna.
instead of having to figure things out on the fly, there's already a plan in place.
Exactly. And that brings up another point, which SALC also talks about the legal aspect.
Right. That was another thing on their list.
Because CBOs, especially those working on sensitive issues,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
they can face some serious legal challenges sometimes.
For sure.
So having clear policies on things like discrimination, harassment, data protection,
All that, yeah.
it's not just about protecting yourself, it's about showing that you take these issues seriously.
And building trust with
Absolutely.
everyone involved.
Yeah.
So we've talked about why these policies are important, but where do you even begin?
Right. That's the big question.
I mean, it can seem kind of overwhelming.
It can, especially if you're a small CBO.
Yeah,
You know, you don't have a big HR department.
right. You're wearing a bunch of different hats already.
Exactly.
But SALC actually provides a really helpful list of essential HR policies that every CBO should consider.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
One that stood out to me was the conflict of interest policy,
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
because CBOs often work with lots of different partners, right?
They do, and they rely on donor funding.
Exactly. So it's really important to have those guidelines in place
It is.
to ensure that everything is transparent and ethical.
Right, because you're dealing with public trust.
Yeah, for sure. But isn't there a danger that a really strict conflict of interest policy could make it harder to collaborate
That's a good question.
with other organizations?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key is to find a balance.
Right.
It's not about saying no to everything.
Right.
It's about having clear guidelines.
So everyone's on the same page.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like the main message here is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to HR policies.
That's exactly right.
Like, you can't just take a template and apply it to every organization.
No, every CBO is unique.
Yeah.
They have their own goals, values, and culture.
Exactly.
So it's about figuring out what works best for you.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
So instead of seeing HR policies as like a chore or something you have to do,
Yeah, just check in a box.
they can actually be really powerful tools
They can.
for CBOs to use to really
They can help you empower your team
empower their work and achieve their mission.
and achieve your mission. Exactly.
I think this has been a really great conversation.
I've enjoyed it.
I always learn something new,
Me too. Me too.
but I'm wondering what advice you would give to CBOs who are listening to this.
That's a good question. I think I would say
Like, where should they start?
start by thinking about a specific challenge that you're facing right now
So that's a good one.
in your organization.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself, could a well-crafted HR policy help you address that challenge?
Oh, like that.
Could it create a more supportive environment for your team?
So kind of flip it around and see if there's a solution there.
Yeah, because sometimes the answer might surprise you.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that's a great place to leave it.
I agree.
So thank you so much for joining me today.
It's been my pleasure.
This has been a really enlightening conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, keep up the incredible work you're doing.
Yes, you're making a difference.
And remember that strong HR policies can really help you take your impact to the next level.
Absolutely, they can.
Until next time.
See you then.